This video is for the sewing up and completing of the Quagga, which is the first instalment of the new Conservationist subscription. So when you finish crocheting your parts, you'll have 4 legs, 2 ears, a head and a body, and we'll be working the mane and the tail on top. So all you need to do is remove any stitch markers and then stuff the pieces. Now I'm using a recycled polyester filling. You can obviously use the natural fillings that are available as well. It really is thinking about the purpose of who you are making the Quagga for. So I've got a feeling that the Quagga that I'm making might get played with every now and again. So I'm making sure, just in case he needs to be, that he could have a wash. But if this is going to be something that sits on the shelf, maybe you're going to develop a collection of these that sit on your shelf, then you can always go for a natural stuffing. So pop your stuffing in and you'll have your centralizer within there that will mark the centre of your tummy as you're putting that together. Then do the same thing for the head. Like that, and you'll see your colour change line is here. That will go underneath your head. So it is, the top will be on the other side. So we'll neatly tuck that colour change line in, should I say, underneath like that. So then we just need to put stuffing in the bottom of the 4 hooves. So I'm just comparing them to make sure that they feel about the same. And then we're ready to sew up. So first take your body. And what I'm going to do is gather the stitches on the top by going in and out through that last round of stitches like that. There we go. And then do the same thing for the front of the head. Then to attach the head onto the body, what you need to do is attach your wool needle onto your body like that. Get your head in position so you've identified where the top is, and then turn that over. And where you're going to be sewing this, what's quite nice with the Quagga is the lines form a lovely grid, so it'll hopefully help you learn sewing up in general, is where you need to attach it is into this colour change line here. So you see you've got your camels, it's into the last fudge stripe before it goes onwards. That's where you want to be sewing between the body and the head. So put a couple of stitches in like that, then turn that head over and check that you've got it in line. So you'll have your centralizer mark, your colour changing is almost, but as symmetrical as it can be coming up that body, because obviously it is dealing with a spiral rather than square. So square that up like that. So you've got your centralizer in the middle, and then sew around that round of stitches. And you will just lose the bottom of that stripe in the head. Don't worry about that. That is entirely intentional. So come round like that. And once I've gone round once, I'll sometimes even go back just to reinforce that head so it's really firm as a joint. So I'm going to put a couple more in at the back of the head. Like that. And whenever you're fastening off an end, just a tip is always head for the actual colour that you are sewing in. So I've got a fudge end that I've been sewing up with, so I just head upwards into a fudge panel and go in and around a stitch to fasten that off, and then I can snip that off afterwards. Right, so next come the limbs. So what you want to do is take 2 of your legs, and you will have a colour change jog on those as well, where you've moved from the charcoal into the cream. And just be wary of where that is. To get the neatest finish, I would always turn that to the back so that you're not going to see it right on the front when you've done your sewing up. So fold the top flat and sew that across. And these leg patterns definitely act as an alternative standard form for all of the equine animals. So then when it comes to positioning the bottom legs, close them up in exactly the same way. And then position them using the rule of thirds. So what you want to do is bring a line down the middle of the head, through that centralizer point and down onto the bottom of the body. And then you sew the legs onto the lines that cause thirds. So there's your line that comes down your centralizer from your head, and then you divide that body into thirds on the bottom, and that's the line that you need to sew your legs onto. And that means that all the designs will then sit up and self-support. So the legs splay forwards at the right angle to balance off the tummy, which will then balance off any weight in that head. So when it comes to adding the tail, it's got a classic chain tail, which is a thing that you'll find a lot in Edward's Menagerie original animals, even down to Bridget the elephant. And so I just want to show you how to do this without having to make it and then sew it in separately. So what you need to do is take your double knit yarn that you're using, we're going to be doing this in camel, and fold it in half like that. So you've got a length that's about 40 centimetres long like that. Then fold it in half again. So what you've done is you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 strands like that, as you can see. And then you put your hook in where you want that tail to be. Now, another great thing about the quagga is the fact that obviously you've got those lines to help you. So you're going to be attaching it onto the first line of the camel there. But if you're ever making an animal and you want to test where to put its tail, always sit it down like that while you decide where to put it. And I've put my hook through 2 stitches, obviously bearing in mind I'm always looking at my leg positioning to check that I am in the middle, and also drawing a line straight up to the centre of the back. Then what you do is you hook over that yarn like that. So you've hooked through, so you've got 4 strands on one side, and then we're going to do a really big chain using those loops. So all you do is you yarn over with all those loops on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then on the 6th one, you should have just about run out of yarn. So what you want to do is put your hook through that final loop and yarn over with it like that. That avoids having to doing any sewing in of any ends. And then what we're going to do on this one is we're actually going to break yarn, because we're going to put the tip in cream. So say you were doing an elephant tail, you'd actually do the smaller chains straight off that now. But because we're going to be doing the tip in cream, you can just break your end like that. And then you sew this end back down and through. And that'll save having to have too many ends to sew on afterwards. So just close off the end and then sew back down through that chain like that. There we go. But what we're going to do is work that tip in cream. So I'm just going to snip off that shorter end that I had at the other end, so that disappears. So using your cream yarn, now pop your hook back through that final loop and then chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and back in. And then when it comes to sewing in these two ends, because it's obviously contrasting, you can't sew down through that camel. So all I would do to fasten off these two would be to do them back through the chain. So hold your chains like that and fasten them off by going through the bottoms of the chains. So finally, it is time to work the mane. So what I'm going to do is just snip off all the other ends. Give myself a nice blank canvas. And I'm going to actually sew the ears on first, which will help me with the positioning of the mane. So to sew the ears on, your ends have ended up on the points. So what you want to do is just gather the points, but then sew the end back through so that you can use it on the wider side to sew them into place. So all I'm going to do is gather those couple of stitches at the top, like that, and then sew back down and through to blunt those off a little bit like that. Then pinch them together. So do a pinch at the bottom like that and put a couple of stitches through the bottom, which will just hold them in a nicer cupped shape like that. And then we want to position these right up on the top of the head. So we're going to be, if you look at the grid on the side, we've got the two camel ones and then we've got two fudge ones. We're going to be sewing them into the middle of that second fudge one there. So two camels, two fudge. We're going to sew them into the second of the fudge one. And it's actually easy putting the first one on because once you've got the first one, you're going to be making the second one symmetrical. So put your first one in and try not to overthink it too much. Get it into place. There we go. So one's in place. Now the important thing is to get this second one symmetrical. And then what you want to do is you can actually be as precise as to count the stitches from up that side. So you know how many you've got there and count them to the other side. That will mean that you get them absolutely symmetrical. But if you don't want to count them, you can do it by eye. You just need to make sure that you've got about the same gap on that side as that side. Again, you know that you're going into that fudge round is what's great because it's marked there for you as a band. And then what we're going to do is work the mane down the stripes, but we are going to stick to the colour order of the stripes. So we're actually going to need fudge and charcoal to do the stripes. And we are going to vary the length of our loops as we come down. So at the back of the body, we're going to have shorter loops and we're going to go up to them being longer on the top. So we're going to start from the bottom here. So you've got your two camels and then we're going to put the first one into this first fudge one here. So line it up with the tail again, put your hook into place on the fudge and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, back in. So once you've got all of the fudge ones in place, now we're going to just do 2 charcoal ones in between each one onto the stripe. So all you need to do then is sew in all of those ends, and then the final touch is putting the eyes in place. And where we're going to put the eyes is onto this camel line here. And with that, Phileus the Quagga is complete.